The game was released in the 90s about an undead skeleton rising from the grave to fight an evil sorcerer and his army of undead creatures, Mr. Bones. But there was another game that was also about an undead skeleton rising from the grave to fight an evil sorcerer and his army of undead creatures, MediEvil. Released in 1998 and developed by Sony's Cambridge studio as an exclusive for the original PlayStation, MediEvil follows the heroic exploits of Sir Daniel Fortescue after he has been revived from the grave when the evil wizard Zarok casts a spell to raise his undead army in an attempt to take over the land of Gamelove. Fortescue sets out to battle his way across 22 stages throughout the kingdom and confront Zarok. The gameplay is a mix of action-adventure combat with light puzzle and platforming elements. I never played it when it came out because sadly I never owned a PS1. I was a Sega Saturn guy. But with the remake coming out shortly, I thought it was the perfect time to give it a go, make a review, and hopefully get a little bit of YouTube algorithm love in the process as everyone searches for reviews of the new version. Hey, a guy can dream, right? So I didn't have nostalgia going into this experience, and with all my reviews I'll be scoring it as it plays in 2019. I do understand the limitations of 32-bit hardware, and so I won't be docking it for pixelated low-res graphics or for lacking modern game mechanics. But I do, however, have to judge it based on things like how it plays or how the camera controls. When you start out, you are limited to just a sword and shield and some throwing daggers. As you go through the different stages, you will acquire more weapons, mostly by collecting a hidden chalice on each stage and then offering it to the different statues in the Hall of Heroes. MediEvil isn't a collectathon though, which is nice. You'll automatically collect the souls of slain enemies, and if you kill most of the enemies in the level, you'll get 100%, and only then can you grab the chalice. And you'll want to do this because you get a lot of excellent upgrades that way. Aside from health vials that act like the extra health tanks in Metroid, you'll get melee upgrades like a magic sword, a hammer that won't break down like the clubs you pick up, an axe that you can use as both a ranged and a melee weapon, and eventually you'll even get a lightning blast that hits multiple enemies at once. You'll also gain ranged upgrades like a crossbow with a lot of ammo or various longbows with magic or fire properties. They do more damage, but they have less shots. Luckily, along the way you'll come across a vendor who allows you to recharge your weapon attacks. And that's great because otherwise all the coins you pick up would be quite useless. While I enjoyed all of these upgrades, and searching every level for them or for the hidden chalice, I found the combat to be lacking and imprecise. If you want to use different weapons, you have to bring up a pause inventory and select them. And it really brings the game to a screeching halt. You don't have a dedicated button for range attacks, so it's one or the other, and I can't help but think just a simple control scheme change here would have made a world of difference. Like a way to cycle weapons on the go. In addition to that, most fights involve you just running towards the enemy and spamming the attack button as fast as possible. You have the option of blocking with a shield, but not only do your shields break down fast, but all blocking really does is delay getting hit. It doesn't push the enemies back or stun them for a second. It just absorbs hits, and as soon as you stop blocking, then you get hit. It is useful in a couple parts where you need to block projectiles while you close the distance in a fight, but most of the time running up and attacking as fast as possible seems like the best way to go. I mentioned that the game contains light puzzle and platforming elements, but neither really add that much to the game. The puzzles are few and far between, and it's usually blatantly obvious what you need to do, which is fine. It does add a variety at least, and I'd rather have easy puzzles than really hard ones in a game so focused on the combat. The platforming, however, is just really bad in my opinion. Not only does your character control too sloppily to make precise jumps repeatedly, but the game punishes you for falling off the stage by taking an entire life bar away. It is really easy to slip off the stages as you try to navigate the often small paths. You don't regenerate life between stages, and when you run out it's game over. So one hard jump can just end you completely and send you back to your save file. In addition to that, the camera ranges from serviceable to flat out bad. Not only are the controls inverted with no option for changing that, half the time you have no control over it at all. When you do have control, it seems sluggish and floaty. And most of the time, when you find yourself in previously mentioned platforming sections, It can be hard to line it up behind you just right to make those jumps more manageable. I know bad cameras are commonplace in early 3D games, but there were enough good examples of game cameras back then to know that it wasn't unheard of. Being able to invert it would have helped for sure. But there was a lot I did enjoy while playing through MediEvil. The stages were nice and varied, and I appreciated the art style, and I think given the limitations of the PlayStation hardware, Cambridge did a good job building a unique world to play in. It's pretty lengthy as well for a game of this type. The music and voices are very well done, and the comedy is nice. Conversations with the different NPCs is funny at best and clever at worst. Sir Fortescue has no jaw whatsoever, so when he talks it sounds like muted gibberish, and it always brought a smile to my face.
Good God, Fortescue, what happened to your jaw? Bad luck, old man.
I can't say that I necessarily desire another playthrough, but I can say that now I'm interested in playing the sequel and the remake as well. I think Fortescue is a cool character, and I would be interested to see if the gameplay is modernized for 2019, because most of my complaints could be remedied with better controls. I don't think it's the greatest thing ever, like a lot of people online seem to think, and I would assume that most of that stems from childhood nostalgia. But if you can look past those feelings, you have to see this game for what it really is. An entertaining and creative jaunt through a Tim Burton-esque world, with passable combat, but annoying platforming, a bad camera, and an inventory system that could definitely use an overhaul. I'm glad I played it, and I see why people loved it, but I have to give it a realistic score here. Final score, 70. Ton of personality and humor. Lengthy gameplay with varied stages, satisfying upgrades and progression system, great music and voice acting, sloppy platforming with punishing falls, a floaty inverted camera, lackluster combat and inventory management,